My presentation is over the presidential election of 2000 and George W. Bush's presidency. In the year 2000, it was time to elect a new president. The Democratic Party chose Bill Clinton's vice president, Al Gore, as their presidential nominee. The Republicans nominated George W. Bush. Bush was the governor of Texas and the son of former President George H.W. Bush. The president's campaigns were very similar. The campaign revolved around the question of what to do with surplus tax revenues. Both nominees agreed on a Social Security reform, but they did not agree on how they would go about it. The two each promised to cut taxes, improve public education, and plans to help senior citizens pay for prescribed drugs. The presidential election of 2000 was different than any other election. The race was so close. It was proved to be one of the closest presidential elections in U.S. history. To find out who our 43rd President of the United States would be took over a month. The television networks projected that Al Gore, the Democrat nominee, would win Florida, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, which were all rich in electoral votes, which would determine the winner. Then, surprisingly, the TV networks took back their original expectation and said that the state was too close to call. Whoever won the electoral vote of Florida would win the presidency. Al Gore won the popular vote by more than 500,000 votes. George W. Bush barely won Florida, but an automatic recount occurred. The recount of Florida's votes said that Bush won by 500 votes. When Al Gore heard the news, he demanded manual recounts in 4 of the most Democratic counties in Florida. However, Bush representatives opposed the manual recounts, saying that such recounts would raise political mischief. Al Gore's lawyer took to court that thousands of ballots had not been counted for. The Florida Supreme Court then ordered all counties to do hand recounts of the ballots that had been rejected by the machines. Right as the counting began, the Supreme Court ordered it to stop. They didn't want any further votes being counted until they had a ruling. On December 12th, the Florida Supreme Court said that because ballots might be treated differently because of who was counting them, the manual recount was a violation of the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause. George W. Bush won the votes in Florida, therefore making him the 43rd President of the United States. Bush was inaugurated on January 21, 2001. Not too long after George took office, an act of terrorism was done on the United States. On September 11, 2001, 2 jets ran into the World Trade Center in New York. This wasn't an accident, it was an act of terrorism. In October of 2001, George W. Bush signed an anti-terrorism bill into law. This law allows the government to hold foreigners suspected of terrorism in custody for 7 days without charging them with a crime. Bush also created the Department of Homeland Security, which works to improve the security of the United States. The Bush administration began to launch a war on terrorism. In October 2001, U.S. began bombing Afghanistan. Bush expanded the war on terrorism to Iraq in 2003. Congress passed a law for a $350 billion tax cut, and Bush signed it. It was time for another election in 2004. The presidential candidates were John Kerry and George W. Bush. Bush won most of the popular vote this time. Finally, taking the lead in Ohio assured him another term of presidency.